Tony, thanks for making the time to speak to me. I've been seeing the guys in there, saw George Lillard. Let's start with George. He's got a big fight, big ticket seller. He's really encouraged about how far he's going to go in the sport. What have you seen in him that makes you think he can go all the way? Because he's looking at world title and no less.
Well, yeah, he's only 23, so he's really young still, and especially to challenge for a British title. And he kind of turned pro with all the youngsters on the scene. Like he turned pro with like Cameron Viong and Junaid Boston and all them, but he's kind of been under the radar a little bit. But I like it like that because he's come on nice and quietly, and he's made the right step ups at the right time. He done an hard 10-rounder against Azazi, and then his last fight was eliminated for the British title. We stopped him in the 5th round, and so he's made them step ups in his career, and I believe now he's ready to fight for the British title. And obviously he's got a really good opponent in Kieran Conway, who's experienced. He actually boxed my British champion quite a few years ago now, Ted Cheeseman, when he was an up-and-coming young kid, and he had a draw with him that night. But you know, years have gone by now, and now George Lillard's the up-and-coming young kid, and you know, that's how boxing goes. It evolves, and you know, I think it's George's chance now to go and grab the title.
You know, with George talking about his aspirations, how fine is the line between belief and overconfidence? And is it a hard one for them to tread on the way up, where they are having a lot of success, it's coming quite quickly to them, but you've also got to keep the brakes on and, you know, keep them grounded and that kind of stuff? Is that a hard balance to strike? Because you would have seen the guys through time, whether they've been guys that you've worked with or not, but guys who've believed the hype early and then sort of invested in themselves and cut corners and that kind of stuff. How hard is it to keep them grounded and not keep them, allow them to have the belief that they can go all the way, but make sure they're taking one step at a time?
Yeah, it's like you're saying there, it's a fine line, and you've obviously got to have the belief in this sport, because if you ain't got the belief, it ain't worth even trying to do it. So you got to believe that you're a good fighter and you can do anything in the ring, and that self-belief sometimes is what brings you through an hard fight. And obviously the other things you got to have about yourself is obviously you got to have that willingness to put yourself through hard training sessions, brutal training sessions. You got to have the skill factor, and you got to be able to punch, I believe, in the pro game. And obviously George, he's still learning. He's British title level now, and he's still learning. He's still really young. He's got loads of self-belief. You know, until he goes into, if he wins the British title against Kieran, which is going to be a tough fight, and if he moves up to the next level, it's like you got to bring yourself up with that. And you know, only time will tell how far any kid goes. Every kid that you see sits on the edge of the ring canvas and says, I want to be a world champion. But it's like I say to him, it's like a needle in an haystack becoming a world champion. It's really, you know, it's a real difficult thing, because if you have got all them things, all them credentials about yourself, you can box, you can punch, you train hard, you've got plenty of heart and desire, you've got self-belief. When you get up to world level or in for a world title, the guy who you're facing in the other corner's got exactly the same as you. So you're kind of fighting a mirror image of yourself, and that's when it becomes, you know, sometimes at the end of the day, it just becomes on heart alone in the end. And so, like you say, to have the self-belief is a brilliant thing to have. You've got to have that, but you've got to take it one step at a time. And to be champion of Great Britain, be the best in your weight at Great Britain, that's a big thing. And it kind of shows you where you're going to go if you win that title, where you're going to go from there.
Well, it's tough domestically as well, isn't it? There's Denzel Bentley, Nathan Heaney, Brad Pauls. Like, there's good fighters in the weight class domestically.
Yeah, there's always, middleweight division has always been a tough division. You've always had great fighters in the middleweight division. I mean, when John Ryder was in the middleweight division, you know, when he was young and up and coming, you know, you had Billy Joe Saunders was also young and up and coming, but you had like Andy Lee, Darren Barker, Martin Murray, Matthew Macklin. They was all world-ranked top fighters. So we've always had an abundance of talent in the middleweight division, and you know, the middleweights, they've always produced that. They've always produced speed and power and athleticism as well. They've always produced them things, and that's what makes the middleweight division like the blue ribbon division. It's like a tough division to be in, and you've got to be a really good fighter to get to the top.
Seen you on the pads there with Jimmy. What are Jimmy's prospects looking like? How far do you think Jimmy can go?
Yeah, Jimmy's just been ordered to fight for the vacant English title on the 17th of October on the same show. So he's kind of a year behind George at the moment. And but he's making the right step ups as well. He won the Southern Area title last time. His first time he went to a points decision. So he'd done a tough 10 rounds. So that stand him in good stead for this fight. And it's just about making the step ups at the right time. Keep learning in the gym. Keep believing in yourself. You know, and then just take the right one step at a time. And the English title right now for Jimmy is the ideal title to fight for.
Looking at your dates on the board, November, you've got a relatively big occasion ahead of you again, November 17th. What did you make of the Benn Eubank fight in April and everything that came with it? Was it unforgettable for you, or was it a question of you feel like you could have done things differently? Could Conor have done things differently, or are you just happy you get to go again?
I think, like, listen, for the fans, it was a fantastic fight. Not just the fight, but the actual event, you know, itself, and people that can remember back to their fathers fighting. It brought back all their memories, and it was a fantastic event. And like everyone said, it was the fight of the year. It probably was, but for me, as Conor Benn's coach, obviously I wanted to see him with his hand raised, and he fought his heart out, but he never boxed to the potential that I know he can box to. You've got to bear in mind he was out nearly a year and a half. He's moved up 2 weight divisions to take that fight on. I mean, he barely weighed over a light middleweight on the morning of the weigh-in, and he was drinking bottles of water on the way to the weigh-in. So he's a natural welterweight. So obviously you're fighting a much bigger guy, but listen, like you say there, he's got a second bite of the cherry, and I believe there's a lot more that we ain't seen of Conor Benn that I've seen in the gym of him. He's got everything in his locker to go and win this second fight, and he knows what it's like now to box up a middleweight. He's got the rust off after not boxing for a long time, whereas Chris had that warm-up fight going into the fight. So I feel like he knows what he's going into now. I feel like he'll produce a lot better performance when he did the first time around, and I think we'll see. I think we'll see Conor Benn win this fight.
Was he too emotionally invested first time around?
I think it was obviously an emotional fight. You know, he's been wanting it to get back in the ring. Obviously, he had the 2 fights in America, but it was such a long time since since he boxed them. He obviously wanted to get back in there. I feel like obviously the crowd and the stadium and the build-up all around it was a lot for him to take in, and I just feel like he's a lot better fighter than we see there, a lot better, and I believe that we'll see that in the next fight.
You know, the fact that Eubank got under his skin, the whole leg stuff and that, though, do you think that he took that with him into the ring? And I suppose what I'm getting at, was he listening to you in the ring? Was he paying attention to you, or was he like going out gunning a bit off script?
I think what you said on the second time, he was going out gunning. I feel like when I spoke to him since, he obviously hurt Chris early in the fight. I think it was the 3rd round, and then he hurt him again, and I think he felt like when he was catching him, he felt like he was wobbling him, and he felt like that knockout was going to come with every punch. So I think that he was more looking for the KO than to win the points decision, and you know, that comes with experience as well. Obviously Chris didn't want to lose the fight either, and he obviously fought his heart out as well, but I believe it'll be a more sensible approach to the next fight. I think he'll be mentally better switched on, as I say, nearly a year and a half out the ring. It's a lot for any athlete or any sportsman to not do their event for nearly a year and a half, and I think next time we'll see a much better Conor Benn in there.
What's your take on Eubank and the weight? I mean, there's obviously so much, you know, obviously Eddie's side is that, well, Conor's the one jumping up in weight. He's moving up 2 weights to challenge this guy. There's obviously the flip side that Eubank is boiling himself down and it's borderline dangerous, and he spent a couple of nights in hospital last time. Do you feel strongly either way, or do you think both sides have a point?
Well, to make the fight, they've both got to do things that they've never, you know, like Conor's never jumped up 2 weights before. So it's a massive jump. I mean, and how heavy can Chris weigh in more than Conor? I mean, he was already a lot heavier than him on the night. Even at the weigh-in, he was a lot heavier than him.
Yeah, so it would be unrealistic for Conor to jump to 168, for instance.
Yeah, because then you're doing 3 weight divisions. Bearing in mind, he weighed 156 for the fight. So he's not even nowhere near 160, let alone 168. So to make the fight, you know, there's got to be concessions from both sides, and the way I looked at it is Chris made 160 for his last 5 fights, and there wasn't any talk about that really, and he made 160 comfortable for his last 5 fights. He only boxed a few months before the Conor Benn fight, made 160 out in Saudi. No one said anything. So, you know, I believe he could have made 160 for this fight. He weighed a little bit over, but he turned up to the weigh-in like with 10 minutes to go left, you know what I mean? So he turned up really late. I believe he could have made that, but listen, it is what it is. Conor Benn can't move up another 3rd weight to 168, so there's got to be a realistic weight that Chris has to make, which is his natural weight, 160. And Conor's probably natural weight for this fight is like between 154 and 156.
How hard did Conor take defeat? Because obviously he got a lot of credit for the fight and for the type of fight that it was. Did he take it hard? Or given that everything that he's been through that we've spoken about a lot the last 2 or 3 years, is it easier for him to take stuff now given everything he's had to go through?
Yeah, it's obviously he had to, you know, he wanted to win the fight. As I say, he believed that he could knock Chris Eubank out, but there was too much belief in that on the night, and I think he knows he's better than what he was in that fight, and obviously it's great to get the adoration of the fans, like they all love the fight, but it's like I'm saying to him, we're going in there to win, and we want to win the fight, and you know, he took this first defeat on the chin, but I believe that he's got a lot of belief in himself that he can win this next fight. He knows what he's got to do, he knows what's in front of him, and I believe that he will win the next fight.
And in terms of on the night, when was the first time you saw Eubank Senior was going to be involved? Because obviously I know you go back a ways with Nigel, and Nigel was an advocate for Chris Eubank Senior being involved. Yeah. Were you pleased to see Senior rocking up? Did you know it was on the cards? Did you suspect it might happen?
I didn't know at all. The first kind of bit I see of him was getting out of the car, same as everybody else. But Nigel said to me earlier on in the night, Chris will definitely be here tonight. And I went, but there ain't been no sign of him up until now. He weren't at the weigh-in. So I said, I'll find that hard to believe, Nigel. And Nigel went, watch, he'll turn up. And he was right, Nigel was right, he did turn up. But listen, it made the event spectacular there, him turning up. It was like, he was the last piece of the jigsaw that needed for that event and that fight, and it was great that he turned up for his son as well.
Hey, talk to me about PEDs in boxing. I know obviously this is linked to what's happened the last 2-3 years. Do you feel like it is a big deal in boxing right now, and what's it like being on the receiving end of so much criticism online?
Obviously, the case that Conor Benn's gone through, it's been tough for him. We've watched him. It's been heartbreaking, you know. And like all my 28 years in boxing, I've never obviously had that before. And you know, to watch someone have to go through that when you believe they're innocent as well is a tough thing. And you know, we had loads of conversations down here. He wanted like retire from boxing and didn't want to do it anymore. But to be fair to him, he kept training. I kept saying to him, there'll be light at the end of the tunnel. You know, you're innocent of what you've done, so that will come out eventually. And he believed, in the end, he believed in it, and he got through the case. And he kept training, and then he's benefited from the kept training, because it would have been easy for him to just not do nothing for 2 years and put your head in the sand. But he kept his head high and he kept training and he come through. But to answer your question, I don't really listen. Who talks about PEDs in boxing gyms? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I've never heard it before. So who talks about it? No one really. Do you know what I mean? But you see people popping for PEDs. I'm not quite sure about the system that's being used. You know, there's a lot of when you look into these cases, there's a lot of like things that go on, and I'm not quite sure about it all really.
The microscope goes onto you, the trainer, as well, though, doesn't it? Because then they start to look at other people in the gym and the results, and they see other people's success. And like we've obviously seen it now, very different circumstances with Reynoso. But like as soon as one's gone, everyone's sort of almost to be sucked into the machine. Yeah,
but that's like the general public. You know, they like to jump on the bandwagon, and if you listen to what everyone's comments saying to you, then you know you're a mug yourself to be listening to them. I mean, I don't really take any notice of what people say. You know, I knew from the start Conor Benn was innocent on that charge. I've had him since he was 19 years of age, and I know what the kid's all about. I know his dad really well. Obviously, we've been mates for years, and that was never possible. But like you say, the public, as soon as one thing happens, the general public jump on one thing, and then they jump on the bandwagon. Then all the media jump on the bandwagon, and it's non-stop. But listen, I don't take any notice of all that at all. Do you know what I mean? I don't really read into it much. I believe the system's got to be looked into more further, and to get it right, because there's people that are innocent, and you know, they're getting found guilty before they've even gone up on their trial.
Yeah, and Conor's admitted that he's perhaps not done things the way that he could have, in terms of appeasing the media, that kind of stuff, and getting his side out there. I think if he could do it, if he could have gone through things differently afterwards, he probably would have done things differently. Is that right?
Yeah, but when you're young, Trish, you say and do things like, when I was young, you say and do things that you wouldn't do when you was older. You know, and you grow in years and you learn about life, and then you're not the same person as when you're young. So you got to remember, they're all young kids. They're all kids. You know, all they've done is trained, and they don't know a lot about outside life really. They ain't really, most of them ain't really gone and got a job when they left school at 16 and met real life head on. Do you know what I mean? They've been like wrapped in cotton wool, a lot of them, in the gym, train, they eat, they sleep, train, eat and sleep. So, you know, they're all young kids, they're babies, all of them. So they might say things that they wouldn't have said when they're in their 30s than when they're in their early 20s. So, you know, I think everyone looks back sometimes at their life with regrets, what they've said. Maybe you have yourself, Trish, you know what I mean? And then you think later on, oh, I wish I'd never done that when I was young, but that's what life's all about.
Hey, so how do things shake out in the rematch? And why will it be different next time?
I just think Conor Benn's got a lot more in his locker to come out yet. He's got a lot more potential. I've seen what he can produce in the gym. I don't know whether Chris Eubank's got much more than he showed on that night. But obviously, the fight's going to be spectacular. I mean, a lot of people bought into the first fight, but I think because it was like the Gattian Walls, like we probably never expected the fight to be like that. And then
to live up to such a build-up as
exactly,
well.
Yeah.
2-3 year build-up of
exactly.
what it was.
And then when we've seen the fight, it's like when Gattian Walls fought, everyone screamed for a return, screamed for the trilogy, because when you see a fight like that, especially when you're seeing it live as well, it's like you're sitting there open mouth, you know, because you can't take your eye off it for 1 second, off the fight for 1 second, because anything could happen. And I think the second fight is going to be a great fight, but I think Conor Benn will have too much for him this time.
And you've just in closing, you've obviously taken on Johnny Fisher. What's the early impressions of Johnny, who I believe has gone out to the wild card, right, and get some good sparring? What's the early impressions of Johnny, and how are things with him?
Yeah, Johnny's good. He's been down here 4 or 5 weeks now, just going through a lot of technical work together. Obviously, Johnny, tell you himself, he's not had no obviously amateur experience, so he's still got a lot to work on. Like Mark and Jimmy Tibbs have done a wonderful job. I remember Johnny come down to my gym when he was a teenager, and he was like, just a raw fella off the street. But so they've done an unbelievable job. He's still got a lot of technical work to do, which we've been doing. He's not fighting till December, which gives us a bit of time to gel together. As you say, he's gone away for a week with his dad on holiday. He's gone to LA, and he's going to do a bit in a wild card, and then I think he's going on to Vegas for a few days, so he's going to do a bit over there, probably at Salas's gym. So get a bit of experience doing that, and he's a nice kid. Like everyone knows Johnny's a nice kid, but he's still a baby in heavyweight terms. He's 26 years old, so he's still a kid. So he's got a lot to learn.
Do you know, have you got a grasp of how far he might be able to take it?
Well, his ambitions is to win a British title. So, working towards that, he's definitely capable of winning a British title. I believe that he technically obviously needs to know more, which we're working on. But he's got the ability to win the British title. He can punch. He's very athletic, and he trains hard. It's just like obviously his experience and his knowledge. He needs to further that. But it's like when I talked to him, I said to him, like, you was at university, you scored a first at university, it takes some doing. And so he knows about learning and getting knowledge, and then getting to that place and that time when you have to produce that. And he understands that, and that's the path he's on at the moment. And I think the British title probably be sometime next year. I think he's capable of doing that.
Canelo Crawford, how do you see it going?
It's difficult to go against Canelo because he's been about that long and done so much. So it's he's obviously got the weight advantage on Crawford. Crawford's got to move up 2 weights.
Something you've seen firsthand.
Something I've seen firsthand. It's not easy. That's not easy to do. It's difficult, and but I don't know whether we see the best of Canelo a couple of years ago now, I think, and I don't know whether he's on that much of a downward spiral now. The Crawford, might have caught him at the right time. Probably if you'd have gone back a couple of years ago, I would have favoured Canelo heavily, but I've got to give Crawford, obviously he's a great fighter, Crawford, and I've got to give him the chance in the fight, now, and maybe it might be the right time to beat Canelo now.
Do you think it'll be a good fight? Do you think it will deliver?
I think it will, because I think obviously Canelo knows how good Crawford is, so he would have pushed himself through camp, and I think when we've seen Canelo up against it, he obviously better and he produces his best. But as I say, I don't know whether he's still got that in his locker anymore. And I don't know. I think Crawford's got a great chance of winning that title.
Brilliant, Tony. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.